Hey folks, Nick here from another BookTube channel, and today I'll be starting a new project and reviewing Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. What project am I talking about? Well, I'm calling it the Back to School project, and the idea behind it is when I was in high school, I was assigned a lot of books to read that I did not read. Or I did read them, and because I was a moody, rage-filled teenager, I never gave them a fair chance. I just immediately went into them wanting to hate them, so I did. But I've come a long way since then. I am still moody and filled with rage, but I'm a lot better at reading now, so I wanted to give those books another shot. So slowly but surely, I'm going to start making my way through all of those books that I ignored in high school, and see what I missed out on. And so I decided to start with Flowers for Algernon, mostly because I found it at a yard sale recently for $1, so I took that as a sign that this should be my first one. So is Flowers for Algernon all that great? And more importantly, should we force teenagers to read it? Let's get into it. Flowers for Algernon is technically a science fiction novel about Charlie Gordon, a 32-year-old man with a mental disability who is selected to participate in a scientific study. Doctors are looking for a human test subject on whom to try a new surgical technique intended to increase intelligence, and Charlie is the perfect candidate. The book is told from the perspective of Charlie in the form of progress reports that he is writing as part of the experiment. Before the surgery, his writing is riddled with spelling errors and grammatical mistakes, and it's very clear that he has a severely limited understanding of the events going on around him. After the surgery, Charlie's reports become more and more coherent until his intelligence reaches and then surpasses that of those around him. As he becomes smarter, Charlie finds his friendships becoming strained as the roles are reversed and now he is the one looking down on others. Flowers for Algernon is a really, really good book. I think Charlie Gordon is a fantastically written character, and his experience from his own perspective is really fascinating to read, and it's captured very well by Daniel Keyes. Early on, when Charlie has not yet had his surgery, Keyes does a really good job of writing a person with mental disabilities without being exploitative or going too far. That's a real challenge because he has to convey that Charlie has a lower intelligence level, otherwise the book doesn't work. But if he goes too far with it, it could feel insulting, and I don't think it ever reaches that point. Charlie is initially a very kind man that doesn't realize that his coworkers at the bakery where he works as a janitor are laughing at him and not with him. He considers them his friends, but as readers, we can see that they are making fun of him, taking advantage of his low intelligence, and being generally mean-spirited. He's also very earnest about wanting to become smart because he recognizes that he is different and he wants to be able to read and write and have conversations with people and be able to keep up. It's hard not to feel an immediate sense of sympathy towards this character. Once Charlie does get his wish, though, and he is of average intelligence, his coworkers become openly hostile towards him, and it makes him realize that they were never being nice to him, and he feels bad about it because he wasn't smart enough to see that before. Charlie is also now smart enough to start unpacking his childhood and realize the serious trauma he endured at the hands of his mother, Rose. Rose never accepted Charlie for who he was and put him through hell to try to make him normal. The now average intelligence Charlie is remembering these events from the perspective of the low IQ version of himself, and some of it is really sickening. The abuse he experienced is bad enough, but to also not have the mental acuity to understand why it's happening to you is just gut-wrenching. As Charlie gets smarter and becomes more aware of human nature, he separates himself from the people he once considered friends, such as his former teacher and the doctors performing the experiment. His kindness is replaced by bitterness and a sense of superiority, and eventually his treatment of others pushes into the realm of how others treated him before his surgery. This evolution is explored organically and feels genuine thanks to the well-paced writing of Keyes. Let's quickly talk about The Elephant in the Room. This book, which was expanded from an original short story, was written in the 50s and published in 1966. The vocabulary used to describe people with mental disabilities back then was crude and, by today's standards, insulting. The R word is thrown around pretty liberally here, as at the time, that was the word used to describe this particular condition. I'm pointing this out just to say that if you are reading this with today's sensibilities towards that language, you may be a little uncomfortable. But ultimately, I think the message of Flowers for Algernon is strong enough to overshadow some outdated language. So should Flowers for Algernon be taught in schools? Yes, I think so. The central themes of treating others with kindness and respect despite their intelligence level is a strong one, and it might make a positive impression on a young person. I also think the book is written in a clear language that isn't dull, and the book is short enough that it doesn't overstay its welcome. And if you are watching this video to avoid reading it for school, I do ask that you please actually give it a chance. My arbitrary and subjective grade for Flowers for Algernon is 8 out of 10. Do with that what you will. Did you read Flowers for Algernon in school? If so, what did you think of it at the time? And if you read it as an adult, let me know your thoughts on it now. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.